Welcome back to another episode of Breakneck with Ian and me, Matt, two founders who are navigating the world of extraordinarily quickly changing technology and business practices. And we figured, hey, let's do a podcast each week where we kind of keep ourselves up to date and just invite the conversations with people who are facing the same issues. So this week, what we would like to do is there's been two big conferences of Google and Microsoft, who are two of the hyperscalers, these companies with gigantic cloud operations, who are investing in models themselves, making big budget acquisitions. And Ian went pretty deep on the Google conference. So what is Google's strategy as of May 2025?
Yeah, well, Matt, let me firstly point out that weekly is not quick enough. This is our third podcast. We did one in the middle of last week about the Johnny Ive OpenAI thing. So check that out. That's a super interesting one. So I spent some time with the Google I/O announcements. There's a lot of them, over 30, I think. And I wanted to highlight the four that really caught my attention. So let's just jump in terms of how eye-catching they were. Number 4 for me was Project Astra, which is this Google project to combine, basically to build the first AI assistant. So again, if you listen to the Johnny Ive stuff last week, it's kind of a version of that. How do we manifest AI physically in our world? So two things. One, Google Glasses are coming back. They had some pretty powerful demos combining Google Gemini and this notion of putting glasses/goggles on your face that give you insight. So the addition of Gemini, which is really their AI platform to the glass, pretty interesting, pretty powerful. It's a use case that I'm really interested in. I'm kind of a DIY sort of a guy, and constantly, as you kind of navigate fixing things and solving things, you want the context, you want this information at hand. And if you've ever, I talked about working on cars, it's always the worst one. You got to work out how to disconnect something, and you turn around and you look at your laptop with your oily hands and you go, I know the information's in there, but I can't get to it, right? And so this idea of bringing that context to you in real time to solve things in the physical world is really powerful to me. So they showed kind of two manifestations, Google Glasses, but they also showed a really interesting one of a guy working on his bicycle with his phone, and kind of multimodal interactions of this agent being able to help the guy work out, check my email because the size of the hex nut is in there. And he pointed at then a bunch of bins on his wall with the hex nuts, and it said, oh, it's the 6 mil. Let's, grab that one. So the headline on that one is kind of manifesting AI in the physical world. Really powerful, bunch of stuff to happen still on that.
I thank you for going deep on that. I'd only obliquely seen that they had some new glasses thing, and obviously it's a direct competitor to the success Meta's had with its Ray-Ban glasses.
Yeah.
As a form factor, and that's kind of contrasting with in the not great reception of a $3,000 headset from Apple. But being able to bring an assistant that's actually good is a direct threat to Siri.
Yeah, I think the other challenge is you really need we've talked about multimodal, you need a multi-form factor approach to this. So they're partnering with Samsung on a headset as well, a VR type of a headset. Let's throw in the Humane and the Rabbit, and the Johnny Ive/OpenAI manifestation, lapel based. Really, Project Astra seems to be kind of attacking it from a multi-form factor.
Yeah.
So,
and if you didn't watch our episode on Johnny Ive, I am very suspicious of new devices. I think glasses make some sense. I got LASIK to get rid of my glasses, so I'm not really enthusiastic about having another item that I have to touch my face with every day. And my point here is that I think there's a lot of people who need a device. And those people are not consumers, but companies. Companies need a device. They're upset that they have to go through the Android ecosystem or the Apple ecosystem to get distribution. And I think that's a problem that Meta has. Google has Android. And so I think they're more future-proofing and cutting off maybe Facebook's opportunity to own a new device category if it somehow emerges. But I just don't see any kind of like real latent demand for this product. Getting a cell phone in 2002 was like a big deal. Like, oh man, I have a cell phone. I can finally, and you can make long distance calls for free on a cell phone, which is one of the biggest values. It was like this jump in capability, but then also in the business model. People begging to wear clips or to wear glasses. There are people who will do it. It's just like,
it's definitely going to be on the utility side. If you take a phone, a smartphone, And why do you use it? There's two things really, entertainment and utility, right? So if you separate the two, I think utility is really where your lapel pins and your watches even and your glasses are going to deliver a lot of value.
And AirPods. I love my AirPods. They're unobtrusive, getting okay at like knowing when to turn off and when to turn on without me having to interact. And I think the biggest, for me, like the biggest excitement I get with the idea of a glasses or something like that is how difficult it is to be a human in the loop using AI. My average use case with AI is I give it some task. So, now it's 2 or 3 minutes, it comes back, and then it's going to have some answer for me, or maybe have something I need to intervene, right? Either I need to approve this is successful and let's move on, or maybe I need to give it some information. And so I love the idea that an AI will have a kind of a fast, unobtrusive way to just check in with me. And I think glasses make a lot more sense just than voice, because if you've ever had like someone just sent you a message and then it reads out like a 14-digit number, please don't do that. That's where glasses can maybe be that multimodal interface to allow a human to quickly access visual information, audio information, interruption, and then give a voice command so it can go back. Like, most managers, I think, operate on voice commands. And the way they like to do that is to have meetings. And if you could instead talk to an agent and then know your manager was going to get that update, and then that manager could be walking, talking, making moves happen. But, do it really, I think agents could create a huge demand for this kind of device, but nobody's really asking for it now, is my point. It's not like a consumer demand to have glasses on
Yeah.
it.
Let me remind you that consumers rarely ask for what they need.
I read your blog post this week. Yeah, I know. I'm
Yeah.
asking for the faster horse, or the faster horse,
There you go.
horse and carriage. I'm
Horse
not
and
asking for a car. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's keep moving. The next one that caught my attention was something called Jules, Jules, Google Jules. It's another coding type of a solution, but this one, I haven't had a chance to play with it yet, but the promise is really interesting. So they describe it as an asynchronous coding agent designed to help developers with various tasks by automating parts of the software development process. The only important thing there is asynchronous, meaning the way it works is you tell it to go off and do something, and it's constrained in terms of, like, a simple one is bumping a dependency. So in software land, you got a bunch of different libraries, and new libraries come out, and you realize, I got to do that work to update the dependency, update the library. The promise here is that you give it those instructions and it goes off and asynchronously does the work. Right now, we're really in vibe coding land, where we're allowing the agents today to kind of create UIs and front end stuff that you look at, stuff that's quite important, but accelerate that. And it's very much supervised. The approach of Jules is something different. It's unsupervised, critical stuff, but much more. What was the rubric you gave me before for this? You want stuff that you can validate and test very, very quickly. And it is that type of stuff. So back to your point that we started out with, this really leans into this notion of the value of lines of code is decreasing very, very quickly. And this is just an area we haven't really explored. I really like this idea, because I can send it off and do stuff and come back and look at it and go, yeah, it worked. That's good.
That's where everyone's going, is that you're going to have agents. And I think people are very quickly moving from sit there and watch the agent work. Like, that's like so much fun when you're vibe coding, just to watch all this code get written, especially after years of trying to like hack through and develop code yourself. And you can spend 4 or 5 hours just for loops and defining functions and stuff like that and getting them all to work. And to watch all that happen instantaneously it's like a dopamine hit. But the real way this is going to work is not, I'm going to sit there, I'm going to write some instructions and then sit there for 10 minutes while like it just actually writes the code. I'm going to be asking it to do something. And eventually I'm not going to spend my time watching this thing code. Now it's going to code 10 times faster than I would. So it's exciting. But ultimately we're going to move to a mode where it's going to be writing for maybe 2 or 3 hours, doing running tests, building, all of that stuff. And so we'll have this asynchronous pattern. And so I think this is Google just throwing its hat in the ring that it owns an asynchronous pattern. One update I'm making to my understanding of the world is that I said Windsurf was like a distant second place to Cursor. But one of the things that I've heard this week is that Windsurf, I was listening to the Dwarkesh episode with the team from Anthropic, and they said, Windsurf was leaning much more heavily into that kind of agentic, asynchronous, kind of long duration style of workflow relative to Cursor. And so maybe the acquisition of Windsurf was not just, hey, this is a second place that we're capable of purchasing, but also OpenAI, when they acquired Windsurf for $3.5 billion a couple weeks ago, pushing much more into, hey, this asynchronous long duration agent style of interacting is working. And so this Google announcement.
And I'll tell you the other thing that I like. You use the word, use the dopamine hit. It's surprising. It's enjoyable to watch this encoding. It's also anxiety ridden in the sense that you're watching this and you're like, oh my God, this is a lot of code. It better be right. And so it's sort of interesting to me. At least the pitch has grabbed my attention, where I can send it off to do very encapsulated things, and I can very quickly go, yeah, you got that right, or you got it wrong. It's just boring, laborious work, and I'm pretty excited about that, because if I can get rid of the talacha, as we love to call it here, people, you're going to have to go back to previous episodes to work out what talacha is.
Yeah, talacha. If you don't know what talacha is, you got to get on board with talacha. It's the word of the 2020s.
There you go. All right, let's keep on going. We're heading into Star Trek land with the next one. This is, I don't know how useful it is for work. It might be useful for you, but Google Meet is launching real-time translation.
That's literally Star Trek. Yes. That's
Yeah, it's literally Star Trek. And I watched it. And so you fire up Google Meet. I don't think it's available right now, so I've only seen the demos. But English speaker talking to a Spanish speaker, Spain Spanish, I think, in the example, rather than other versions of it. And so it is what you would expect it to be. You know, Ian speaks English, Matt speaks Spanish, and it gets converted. The most entertaining part of it for me, beyond the surprise of how quickly it worked, was when it gets translated from Spanish into English. So I'm listening to the translated language. It's in a Spanish accent, so English in a Spanish accent, which I thought was really entertaining. But it sort of speaks to the way we think about this stuff, even though we've never really seen it before.
Well, I used to run a services company with offices in Mexico, Spain, Vietnam, Thailand, New York, so on. Like, here's something that people don't appreciate. There is such a gigantic wage gap in places like Vietnam and Mexico, obviously, between people who can speak fluent Spanish and those that can't. And the reason is, the average enlightened tech worker will refuse to work with someone with a heavy accent. They just refuse. I've seen it. Versus someone who has like a pretty good accent. And so when you're running those firms, you need everyone to be able to read and write in Spanish, in English, but you need a few really coherent English speakers to lead the team. And so I've seen people who are much better coders not go as far in their career just because their English was a little bit behind. The economic impact of leveling that out, and I saw the demo. It's there. I've seen the level of translation in my own text to text and seen the kind of real time nature. It's probably super compute intensive, but that would be something that if Google could deliver at scale, is gonna, like, there's millions of people right now who are going to enter like the workforce, this globalized English speaking workforce. And, so as an example, like Vietnam, GDP per capita about $2,000. For the places in that country that speak English effectively, and there's a lot of great English speakers in South Vietnam, especially, $38,000 per year, just for that, because they can go on the internet and they can speak English people. The impact of this technology is going to be immense. Google's going to capture none of the value, and it's a wonderful thing that Google did. There's going to be 10 million people across the world who are suddenly going to have access to maybe 10 times higher salaries than they would have had. Like, I've been part of this for the last 10 years. It's going to be incredible. I love it.
Yeah, it's a nice segue. That's sort of unlocking things, a nice segue into the last one on my list, Twitch. The first three, Project Astra, Jules, and Google Meet, got me quite excited and intrigued. The next one has me slightly concerned, but equally excited. So VO3, so if you haven't seen it, this is the video generation. Really, really powerful. I think it's one of the first, if not the first, to combine audio, synchronized audio with the video. And if you haven't seen the demos, go watch them. The ones that Google presented were all about multiple people on a screen talking and interacting. Pretty powerful stuff. I think we'll see short form video transition very, very quickly. The concern here is we rely on video as truth quite often, not always, right? But quite often. And one of the most popular videos on Reddit this week was a video of, I think it was a leopard being chased by a pack of boars, and the leopard climbed up the tree and eventually had to jump off and run away. It was about 2 or 3 days into it that somebody said, this is an AI video. And they went back and find a spot, a glitch where you can see a boar suddenly disappear and show up on the other side of the screen. So I don't know if the people of Reddit are the best investigators or spies, but it is interesting to me that within days you got this AI generated video that became virtually undetectable. And so if you think about dash cams, you think video for, in law situations, there's a bunch of stuff and then to me, that's just the leading edge of what we can do with this stuff. So excited, but equally concerned about this one.
Watched the most recent Mission Impossible this weekend. And over the last 6 months, I basically watched the entire series again. So I'm a Mission Impossible brain. I'm ready for final. Not a great movie. The best action sequences you've ever seen. Just go see the movies. Just go see it in theaters. There's basically 2 small movies that are the greatest action sequences maybe ever filmed. One of them. I just loved it. It was great. I got popcorn, totally blew through my calorie diet. And the whole movie is about this AI that basically fakes all digital representation. When the first one came out, I'm like, this isn't really this is kind of like boring. And by the time this second movie came out, it felt so relevant, and it was basically everyone has to use literally letters with stamps on or with the seals on them, because no form of digital communication can be trusted. To expand on this, I think a lot of what I imagined this AI video would be for was to replace a movie like, Tom Cruise or something like that. I don't think it's ready for that, but there's this huge long tail of video production. Like, let's say you're an actor in Hollywood. I would say that the modal actor, like the not that there's a mode, but the average median actor probably does commercials. The average model is not Cindy Crawford. There's someone who's modeling clothes. All of those people are going to be wiped out. It was already a competitive industry. Obviously, everyone wants to be a model, wants to be an actor. That's gone. Like drug commercials, website, like stock footage, it's all gone. Like it's seeing VO3, that stuff's not going to work anymore. The last thing I'll point out is that there's an emerging industry of the way I think about it is reverse DRM. So it used to be DRM was so you could prove that you're capable of watching something, and then
digital rights management.
Digital rights management. It's how so you can't pirate a Netflix stream or something like that. There's a DRM that has to validate that you're a user who's provisioned access to this content. And now what's happening is the same types of technology are being used cryptographically in reverse, so that you can prove that this is the actual source of the video, right? And so this is important, for instance, undersea cables for your drones that are reporting back from the battlefield. Well, when you can insert anything you want into a video feed, you actually can't trust that that video is being sent back has the right provenance, or video going into an AI that's looking at lots of videos. Maybe an adversary can insert video with fake things in it that can convince your battle management environment that there's an enemy at a place where they're actually not, or they're, vice versa. So anyway, go watch the Mission Impossible movie. Tom Cruise did a great job on it. It's not the greatest drama ever, but just on brand.
Well, VO does have the watermark, not a visual watermark, but it has DRM, for the want of a better description, embedded in it. So you can understand if it's, at least Google can. So Matt, I'm nervous because you told me you read a blog post.
I read your post. I recommend it to people. It was the difference between craftsmanship and workmanship. It's something we've talked about on previous episodes, that you're going to get paid less and less for doing work, and you're going to get increasingly compensated solely for your ability to make sure the right thing gets built. And whether that's, fine crafted details, brands are going to be judged on their authenticity and judged on their craft, not necessarily on their throughput. And I think there's going to be a lot of stuff that basically stops having craft involved with it whatsoever. We might not use video anymore just simply because it doesn't have any evidence of craft at all. We might only want to see in-person musicians, because I was using Suno this weekend with my daughter. Okay, it's pretty good music. Better than stuff I hear on the radio in some instances. Like, who cares about it anymore? And things that used to create that sense of meaning and appreciation for things, now that they are going to basically be 100% AI slop, you just stop paying attention to them as a mode of art or interaction. And so my thoughts on this are, what are the things where craftsmanship will still allow it to be retained? And then, so a bunch of jobs are going to go away because they are just work. And that work will be done, and we're going to stop thinking about them. They'll stop being careers in the same way that like it used to be like 90% of Americans were farmers in like 1900, and now it's 3%. It's just stop being a thing. It's a bunch of robots now basically doing the farming to a great extent. As social media influencer is a very valuable career for certain people where it didn't exist before. And it's because of that ability to create authentic relationships. And so I really liked your article, and I just wanted to reflect that writing code is no longer craft, it's work in a lot of instances. And I think there's a lot of businesses that have not updated their
Yeah,
business.
one of the things about craftsmanship, our appreciation of it, is it shifts over time. 20 years ago, we didn't think there was any craftsmanship in social media influencers, right?
It seemed like trash.
A couple of hundred years ago, ironwork was something that we really felt there was craftsmanship. But we update our thinking on craftsmanship, and it's generally related to what takes a lot of effort or what's something that I would not be able to do. And so software writing, still, there's a lot of craftsmanship and creativity involved in that, but it's going to get devalued. And I think video is another example of something that's going to get devalued. Something will replace it. It's a little bit hard to say what that is going to be, but that's maybe where we should focus our kind of long-term thinking a little bit, is where those areas of craftsmanship, or said another way, we've said this constantly, keep working on things that are hard to do.
Or just pay attention to things that are hard and be reflective on them. You know, there's things about my own business that I probably wouldn't have paid attention to because the amount of effort that would have had to gone into it versus was that the key constraint for my business, is the equation just didn't make sense. Like anytime you're building a new company, it's just, there's a lot of things that kind of suck. And it's like, well, yeah, I could go and spend $500,000 on that right now, but there's other things that I need to validate first. Well, if that thing that used to cost 500,000 now costs 30,000, well, now it's my job, and now it's something I have to focus on. And that's like a year apart from, hey, this is not part of my problem set and not something I should care about and not a core skill that I need to worry about, to becoming actually easy enough that it starts to fit into actually being my job. You see what I'm saying?
100%. Like, there used to be a time when if your business had a website, that conferred tremendous credibility because it was hard to get one of those things. And then it was like an email that with the domain of your business, like, oh my God, that's kind of pretty cool, you know? And so those things don't have the same value to us anymore. And that's, I think the challenge for us, of course, is the rate at which we are devaluing those things. It's not necessarily apparent what's going to appreciate in value in this sort of society, I suppose, in terms of skills and artifacts and products.
Yeah, I was kicking around starting a new company with a friend related to a partnership with Pact and looking at it. And I remember I built a logo with a friend. I paid them money, and we did it pretty fast. And this is the Pact logo. I remember when we started it, and I liked the logo. But then this one, it was just basically ChatGPT, logo time, go through view. That one's good. Let's go. And it's up and running. Website's up and running. It's done. And it's like, I think there's things that used to just be these huge parts of forming a company that are now, it's like, yeah, that's good enough. Let's move on. Or it used to go to designer. Now it's just ChatGPT and good taste. And anyway, I was reflecting a lot on that, on your essay about craftsmanship. And it's not just I have to stop doing certain things. I also have to start becoming a craftsman in other places that used to either be outside the scope of what I considered to be my business and are now becoming expectations for every business, or, used to use a third party and now I have to do myself. And I think that that's a big drift in terms of what I feel my job description is. And AI is forcing you to move ahead and do things and display craft in areas that I didn't think were important before.
Yeah, 100%. All right, Matt, I think that's it for this week. Again, we attempted to do a short podcast, and here we are with not a short podcast.
You go as fast as you can, and you're never fast enough, I think, is a good coda to this particular episode.
All right, well, let's land it there. We'll see you next week.
See ya. Thank you.